Good evening, everyone. May we have your attention? We're about to get started.
Just get ready to kind of gather around.
If you wouldn't mind just gathering around. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Shawn Kramer, and I serve as president of the Board of Trustees of Ceasefire PA. And on behalf of the board and staff, hi Bear. On behalf of the board and staff, I'd like to welcome you all to our 5th annual Keystone Courage Award event. We'd like to extend our sincere thanks to our host committee and to our event co-chairs, Kathy Ockrock and Peter Hilton Kingston, and Michael Scott and Robin Hauner. We'd also like to thank our generous sponsors of tonight's event. At the platinum level, we have Michael Scott and Robin Hauner, Lynn and Harold Honickman of the Honickman Foundation. Something happened to the sound?
Is it on? I think they just turned off.
Can you hear me? Oh, good. Okay. And Harriet and Larry Weiss. And our gold sponsors include Einstein Health Network, Nancy and Gary Gordon, Jefferson University Hospitals, Thomas Jefferson University. Yeah. You can't hear me? What happened?
It says it's on. Did we lose the mic when the music went off? Wrong.
Sorry.
Did we lose the mic? I got it. 1 sec. I don't think so. Yes.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you.
Our gold sponsors include Susanna Lax Adler, Deborah and David Magerman, Pam and Tony Schneider, the Rhonda Shatton Foundation, the Trauma Center at Penn, Lawrence Z. Stein, and Temple University Health System. We'd also like to welcome the elected officials who join us this evening. Senator Bob Casey. State Representative Movita Johnson-Hurrell. Montgomery County Commissioners Valerie Arkush and Ken Lawrence. And last, I'd like to thank our wonderful staff, board, and partners who work behind the scenes every day to move us toward our goal of ending gun violence. And now, I'd love to introduce you to our Executive Director at Ceasefire PA, Shira Goodman.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you for being here. If you read the ad book, I said that we're all champions. It takes all of us to do the work that we do every day. Yeah, thank you. I want to thank a few more people. I want to thank Dan Stern and R2L for being such gracious and generous hosts. I think this is the most beautiful night we've had here. I want to thank Jen Stern and 452 Design for all of the beautiful design work she does for us. The Honickmans and Pepsi bottlers for helping us tonight, Hippographics and CRW for always doing our printing, Samantha Slade, Alan Hanford for their design work, and of course our amazing staff, Rona Gerber, Christian Soltesiak, Jeff Dempsey, Joyce Garland, Rob Conroy, and Sion Tessife, who are in Pittsburgh, and our newest staff member, John Hanover, Jess Kaplan, Max Milkman, and all of the interns and volunteers who are here tonight. It really does take a small but mighty village to do the work that we do. And when I started this job 6.5 years ago, we were 3 people in what was basically a closet that Kenny Kaiserman gave us at the Bourse. Now we have staff in 3 cities. We go all around the Commonwealth. We are loud and mighty, and I'm so pleased to ask you tonight to join us in our latest technology endeavor. So if you take out your phones and text ceasefire to 97779, That's 97779. Text the word ceasefire. You will be enrolled in our new texting program. We think that we are the first state group in the country to do this. We're really excited. It's funded by a grant from the Hillman Foundation, and it will make our advocacy and education work even better. So I'll say it one more time because that's the instructions. Text ceasefire to 97779. We'll remind you again. So this work, as you know, there are good days and there are bad days. Today, obviously, is a good day, but it has been a tough few weeks here in Pennsylvania and across the nation as we have gotten greedy and impatient. And I think that's how we should be, greedy and impatient. We don't want half measures. We don't want incremental steps. We want the change that will save lives. I got into this work because I believed that gun violence was a solvable problem. I still believe that. We have the technology, the know-how, the resources. We need the will. When I look out at this room, I see a lot of will. We need to translate that to the ballot box, as we did by just electing Movita Johnson Harrell, a survivor. We need to do that in the streets, and I'm sure you'll see some of the volunteers who check you in are students who run March for Our Lives Philly, and we need to do that every day. We're going to be with our friends from Moms Demand Action at the Capitol tomorrow, lobbying on a new extreme risk protection order bill. And we need you with us every day, calling, thanking the people who are on the right side, and hounding the people who are on the wrong side. And there are still too many of them in Pennsylvania, but the tide is turning. So tonight we celebrate, and we thank you, and we commit to getting back to work tomorrow. So don't forget to text ceasefire to 97779. And with that, I'm going to introduce one of our co-chairs, Michael Scott.
I am very pleased tonight to welcome Senator Bob Casey and to thank him for being here and for being a big ceasefire PA supporter over the years. Senator Casey, in his more than 12 years in the United States Senate, has been a powerful voice for families, for the elderly, for children, and especially since the 2012 murders at Sandy Hook Elementary School, he has been a very powerful voice for common sense gun laws. In 2018, let me go back a second. In 2016, as we all know, unfortunately, Donald Trump won Pennsylvania. In 2018, Senator Casey was challenged by a hand-picked, NRA-supported, Donald Trump-supported Republican, and Senator Casey beat him by more than 13 points. Senator Casey has said recently that he is not a candidate for President of the United States, but I will not be surprised if we hear his name more and more in the national conversation as we approach 2020. Senator Casey?
Well, Mike, thanks very much for that introduction. And he added that last part. He said he was going to tweak me at the end there. Mike, you did a good job of that. But I'm honored to be here for several reasons. First of all, when I consider the work of ceasefire, and when I consider those who are being honored tonight, in addition to me, I'm really humbled. Because when you're an elected official and you go to work every day for the people of our state, as I do, and you cast votes, you appreciate when anyone recognizes your work. But it's especially humbling when I consider the work that's been done in the trenches by the people in this room, some laboring in the vineyards, to use a phrase from the Bible, for not just years but for decades, to get us to the place we are now, to have the kind of momentum we have on common sense gun measures that we have right now. But when I consider what Fred has done, and you'll be hearing from him in a moment, and Dr. Goldberg and Scott, the work they have done, I am not only humbled, but in a sense I have part of me feels unworthy in comparison to the work that they do, but I don't mind sharing the stage with them. But I'm really honored, and I want to make sure we leave time to hear from them. But I do want to commend and salute Ceasefire for bringing light in bringing the light of education and advocacy to the darkness of gun violence. Over and over again, year after year, for the work that your whole team does. Shira and your whole team, year after year. We know that over the last 2 decades, almost 200,000 children and teenagers have been shot. Gun violence is now the 3rd leading cause of death among our nation's children, who are 17 times more likely to be killed with guns than children and teenagers in other high-income nations. Second, and I won't give you a lot of numbers because you already know most of them, if not all of them, almost 95% of American public school children participate in active shooter drills at school. This includes training for children in preschool or even younger. 95% of school children. That is not what was happening when I was growing up or when most people in this audience tonight were growing up. So we're faced with a maximum challenge that this issue presents. The scale of the violence, of gun violence, the scale of that violence is a uniquely American problem. I realize that it happens around the world. I realize that we read and learn about horrific events in other countries. But no country has the problem that we have. So a uniquely American problem has to be solved by Americans. And that's why I'm so grateful for the work of Ceasefire and the support that you give Ceasefire. And we have to ask ourselves, is the most powerful country in the world going to say to our communities and say to our children and our grandchildren, there is nothing we can do except, as some would argue, just enforce existing law? I don't think that's an American way to approach a uniquely American problem. So we have to ask ourselves, we've got to ask ourselves as well, will we surrender to this problem, or are we going to figure it out and fight back against the forces that want to do nothing? We're not going to surrender to this problem. We're Americans. We come together, we figure it out, we work together, we fight together to pass legislation, and that's what's going to happen. And because of you, because of the work you've done year after year, trying to get candidates elected, making this a major issue. In 2018, we made gains all across the country. We now can say that in the United States House of Representatives, we've had a measure pass that chamber for the first time in a quarter century because of your work, because of your voice, because of your advocacy, and because of your determination. And we are just getting warmed up, because in 2020, we can add to that momentum by electing more House members, more members of the General Assembly here in Pennsylvania and across the country in legislatures. We can elect United States senators who are on the side of common sense gun measures. And also, in 2020, we can elect a president who will sign into law a series of good gun measures. We can do that. Whether it's background checks, which we now have some momentum on, or whether it's funding for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to study this issue, or whether it's a ban on military-style assault weapons. On and on, go down the list of measures that we can come together on in what I hope will be someday a bipartisan way. But if that's not possible, we're just going to keep electing members of the Democratic Party to those positions to get things passed. So I want you to know how much I appreciate being here tonight and being the subject of commendation. But really, the compliment and the gratitude should go your way, because you have made it possible for people like me to stand up and fight and to win elections. We had elections in a big complex state last year called Pennsylvania. And they said for years that someone with the position that Governor Wolf had, or the position I had, or the position our members of the House of Representatives, now members then candidates, that if you had that position, you could not win a congressional district, or you could not win a statewide election. Those days are over. We're on the side of momentum, we're on the side of winning, and we're going to win in 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Casey. Senator Casey, we're so lucky to have him as our senior senator. He's, I think, one of those rare politicians who is genuine and honest and willing to listen and willing to change his mind. And when he sets his mind to something, he becomes a leader. And he really has become a champion on this issue. So we're so happy he was here tonight because we have 3 very important awards to present. I'm going to ask Fred Guttenberg to join me as I present the first. And in a few moments, we'll also recognize Dr. Goldberg and Scott Charles from Temple. The Keystone Courage Award we started 5 years ago to recognize somebody who is leading the way, who is stepping up when others have not. And this year we're honoring Fred Guttenberg. And Fred did not choose this cause, did not choose this path. He was a businessman trying to figure out what his next step was after the tragic loss of his brother. When he got terrible, terrible news on February 14th of 2018, his son Jesse had made it out of school, but they couldn't find his daughter Jamie. And later that day, they found that Jamie was one of those tragically killed in that horrible massacre at Parkland. And the very next day started Fred's journey to advocacy. He was asked to speak, and he has not stopped. And you have probably seen Fred on Twitter and on the news and trying to shake then Judge Kavanaugh's hand, now Justice Kavanaugh. You have seen him yelling back at Congressman Getz from Florida. You have seen him fighting. He is trying to elect good candidates. He is trying to get people paying attention. He has introduced a law called Jamie's Law. And for all of that work, for being a leader, for being fearless, for fighting through his pain and standing with us, we are proud to present him with the Keystone Courage Award in 2019.
So I'm going to just say, I haven't been this hopeful or inspired since my daughter was killed on February 14th. This crowd, my weekend in Pittsburgh that I just came from today with the families of the Temple shooting there, we're going to fix this and we're going to get this done. So I want to ask you all to indulge me for a minute. Imagine your perfect day. Maybe you're seeing old friends for the first time in 30 plus years, which I have tonight. Maybe for the kids in the room, you have a new love relationship or you just got an A on your test. For the businessmen in the room or the lawyers, you just got a deal done. For the senator in the room, the Mueller report just got released. So just take a minute with me. Are we all having our perfect day? Are we all there? Boom! Just like that. A single shot. So I have a question for everyone in this room. Who wants to be shot? Who wants their life to end that tragically, that suddenly, that instantaneously? I didn't think so. I know my daughter didn't. I know the Squirrel Hill community in Pittsburgh didn't. It's not normal. It's not right. And with the GVP, or Gun Violence Prevention Warriors and Heroes in this room, we're going to stop this. We're going to get this done. So. Yeah. So, I want to take a minute to tell you all my story. I had a normal life not long ago. Back in November of 2016, I sold my business. I was a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee. And my brother, at the time that I sold my business, was battling a recurrence of the cancer that he was fighting as a result of his service in 9/11. My brother ran the triage for 9/11, was in the World Trade Center when it collapsed. Amazingly, where he and 10 other doctors hid out, did not collapse. And he was actually in the building before the second building got hit. Nobody ever expected it to collapse, so they stayed there to set up a triage. When the collapsing stopped, these doctors, these heroes, they spent 16 days at ground zero, breathing in all that stuff. My brother, around the time that I sold my business, his cancer was back. And I spent the better part of 2017 going back and forth to New York to help my brother out. In October of 2017, he passed away. My sister, who's here, we spent 6 weeks with him in hospice. We watched him take his last breath. And promise me when I tell you, I thought that was the worst thing that could possibly hit a family. The worst. Following his passing, the community came together and threw a funeral that was over the top. The New York Fire Department buried him with full honors, helicopter flyover, 500-600 people. For those of you from New York, they even closed the Southern State Parkway. And I remember being at his funeral being both sad and inspired at the hero that my brother was. And I also remember thinking, I'll never be part of a funeral like this again. But I was. February 14th, Valentine's Day, the day of love. My kids, who are everything to me, started my morning in my house, like most mornings, with chaos. They were running late. My dogs were being annoying. My wife and I needed to get out. If anyone wants to know why I do what I do today, it is because of what I can't remember from that morning. I was so busy rushing my children out the door that day that I do not remember if I said 3 simple words to my kids. I love you. I was busy. You got to get out the door. You got to go to school. And I don't remember if I said to them, I love you. And it haunts me. I sent 2 children to school that day. The day was going along perfectly normal. The normal texting back and forth from my kids. Until just after 2, when my son calls me. And he says, Dad. And my son does that a lot. And he's a jokester. So I usually just say back, what? And he goes, Dad. And I'm like, what? He goes, I'm serious. Like what's wrong? He goes, there's a shooter at my school. And when he said that, I still wasn't sure if he was playing a game until he said, and I can't find Jamie. Because he watched after his sister like a hawk. And I said, where are you? And he said, I'm running. And I hear bullets. The bullets he was hearing were coming from the 3rd floor, and they were the ones killing his sister. My daughter and my brother were the 2 toughest people I knew. And my daughter, like my brother, fought for her life. And I know it because she did not die in a classroom. She died in a hallway where there were cameras. And she died running for her life. And she made it to within 1 second. She was turning into a stairwell. 1 more second and she's safe. In fact, for anybody who has seen the MSD Commission videos, if you recall on the third floor by the stairwell, the black oval covering a body, that's my daughter. That's the last picture ever taken of my daughter. My daughter was shot with a single shot, and it severed her spinal cord. The investigators say they think she died instantly. I stand here as a father who has to tell everyone, I hope my daughter died instantly. Just imagine that. Because the alternative is that she suffered, even if for a few seconds. I hope my daughter died instantly. That's not normal. On February 15th, the day after the vigil, I learned that there were, or the day after the murder, I learned that there was going to be a vigil. And my sister and I and some friends and family decided to go. And when we got there, the mayor asked if I wanted to speak. I said yes. I had a lot to say, and I guess I haven't been able to stop since. What happened to my family can't happen to your families. It can't happen to your children. It can't happen to you. And together we need to put a stop to this. It's not normal. And no offense to the senator in the room, and again, my sister who's here will remember this, because my family, we're a bunch of people who scream at the television when we see all this political stuff. They all wanted to tell me how to go forward, because I decided I was in this fight. And they all wanted to tell me which senators and congressmen to call and about legislation. And I decided I wasn't wasting my time with legislators or legislation at the time. That had already failed. I was going after the gun lobby. I'll clean it up, but what I spent every minute of the next week saying was, I'm going to break that effing lobby. And we're going to do it by going after their money. That lobby is what held our legislators and legislation hostage. You all live in a state where that is unfortunately very true, and you understand that. But you know what? We're winning. The cracks started early. Dick's Sporting Goods decided they're not going to sell those weapons of war anymore. The VP of marketing at Dick's Sporting Goods happens to have been a personal friend of mine, who I know from my days as a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee. And they had a personal connection. And sometimes in life, these personal connections matter. The cracks kept on coming. Only in weeks in Florida, we passed gun safety legislation against the wishes of the NRA. Oh yeah, it's a big deal. Florida passed gun safety legislation. And the NRA did what they have is really their only option left. They filed a lawsuit because they're losing the message, and slowly but surely they're losing legislatively, city by city, state by state. And to every governor and mayor in this country who believes in this mission, pass legislation and force them to file lawsuits. It will bankrupt them. They can't fight every one. I remember the night of the vigil that I described this feeling of being broken, which I was, still am. But what helps me heal is people. It is the greatness of people. It's this room. It's Shira calling me months ago to tell me people are noticing. People are with me in this fight. I'm very thankful for all of you. It's the greatness of people that gives me the strength to go forward, and it inspires me as we keep on fighting. It inspires me as we continue the work to make the NRA as irrelevant as the tobacco lobby is today. We've not seen another 9/11 event in this country. because of the amazing efforts of many in this country to take the steps to ensure it does not happen again. And we need an effort like that to stop this gun violence. This is an American problem. Those are two distinctly American tragedies, gun violence and 9/11. One, America stood up and took action. And the other one, right now in America, we're failing, but we're turning the corner. 40,000 people per year, 40,000 die from gun violence right now. That's more than traffic accidents. To give you all a little perspective on that number, in the time that I am talking to you, that means somebody's learning they're a victim of gun violence, somebody's burying a victim of gun violence, and somebody is planning a funeral for a victim of gun violence. It is not normal. It is not. And don't let anybody stand up to you and say, oh, but the Second Amendment. Nobody's going after any Second Amendment right. We're not trying to remove weapons from those who are legal, lawful gun owners. We are trying to remove those who intend to kill from the access to weapons. It's really simple. So in closing, I just want to say to this room, and especially to the kids, we have levels of strength and resilience that we do not know about until we are tested. I've been a business owner with the highs and lows that go with that. I've been unemployed and having a hard time paying the bills. I've been a corporate employee with the highs and lows that go with that. You know, I've been a husband now for will be 20 years next week. I'm a father. I've had the relationships when I was younger and all the highs and lows that go with that. And I tell you this because no matter what in life, I've never, not a single low moment ever came close to this. And I tell you this because I want you to understand the lesson of perspective. I've spent a lot of time thinking back about all those moments in life where we thought it was the worst. I'm never going to get through it. And I look back, I can't even remember what they were. And so to the kids in this room, do that for yourselves. Think back about all those times when you thought you were having that worst moment. Probably don't remember half of them. And so I'm trying to tell you all we're resilient, that we have the ability to take action and steps that we didn't know were in us, that we have the ability to fight back. In fact, in this country, it's in sometimes this country's lowest, most horrible moments where our leaders and heroes are born. When I look around this room at the gun violence prevention warriors that I know and many who I met tonight, you are my heroes. When I look at the kids from March for Our Lives in this room and across this country, you are inspiring all of us grown-ups, and you are heroes, and you are our future leaders. Don't get, oh yeah. Don't get burdened by your moments. How you react to them will define you. So with that, thank you. I look forward to fighting with all of you, and I look forward to defeating this between now and the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I think many of us feel that you're our hero, and there are many heroes in the room tonight, and I want to recognize that there are so many people here whose lives have been touched by gun violence, and we've honored some of them, and we honor your stories, and we know that when you help us, that it's not always easy, and we know, Fred, that there's a cost to what you've just done, and so we thank you for that. 3 years ago, we started the Lighting the Way Forward Awards to recognize local folks who are also fighting the gun violence battle. And I'm going to invite board member Kathy Ockrock to present the 2 awards tonight.
It is my privilege to present tonight's Lighting the Way Forward Awards to two real champions in the fight to end gun violence, Mr. Scott Charles and Dr. Amy Goldberg, both of Temple University Hospital. Mr. Charles Mr. Charles serves as the Trauma Outreach Coordinator for Temple University Hospital and is the director of Temple's Cradle to Grave program, an award-winning hospital-based violence prevention initiative that illustrates the harsh realities of gun violence for public school students and adjudicated youth. Dr. Amy Goldberg currently serves as professor and chair of the Department of Surgery at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine, surgeon-in-chief of Temple University Health System, and medical director of perioperative services at Temple University Hospital, and she is a newly elected director of the American Board of Surgery. Dr. Goldberg's passion is patient care and surgical education. Dr. Goldberg is widely recognized as an expert in violence prevention and improved outcomes for victims of trauma. Under Dr. Goldberg's ardent leadership, the Cradle to Grave and Turning Point programs have received national praise for their positive impact on the lives of youth and patients in North Philadelphia. Together, Scott and Amy are saving lives and working to make Philadelphia safer. And so for their inspiring work, saving lives in the hospital, and working in the community to prevent more of our neighbors from becoming patients, it is my pleasure to present this year's Lighting the Way Awards to Mr. Scott Charles and Dr. Amy Goldberg.
So I made my comments really short because I expected that I was going to be talking before the great Fred Guttenberg, which I guess this is my reward for doing something good, is to have to follow Fred. It's wow. I wanted to do a couple things. These aren't in my very brief comments, but I wanted to give some context. As we stand and sit here tonight, we're in the city in which 25,000 people have been shot in the lifetime of your average high school senior. 25,000 people in the city of Philadelphia. And we save 80% of those shooting victims. Thanks to the amazing level 1 trauma centers that we have in the city of Philadelphia. I am fortunate enough to work at one of those. Here tonight are some of my allies, some of my friends, some of my heroes from Temple University Hospital. Temple University Hospital folks, can you just wave and say hello? We also have some friends of ours from the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania, Penn Presbyterian. Can you guys wave your hands? Let them know you're here. In the back. And people often ask what happens to gunshot victims after they get just discharged from the hospital. You know, thankfully we have a great support system. We've put together a team. The team has actually put itself together of allies, of folks who work with victims. We have folks from Northwest Victim Services here. We have folks from North Central Victim Services. And my partner in crime, Ian, over there. So, Dr. Goldberg and I would like to begin by thanking Shara Goodman and all of our friends and allies at Ceasefire PA, not only for the recognition, but for their tireless efforts to push Pennsylvania's policymakers to enact responsible gun legislation. We're so humbled to be receiving the Lighting the Way Forward Award from a group that has done so much to protect the lives of this Commonwealth citizens. We'd also like to thank Temple University Hospital and its leadership, who for 13 years now have opened their doors to thousands of Philadelphia youth so that we might educate them about the public health crisis that is most likely to claim their lives. We are incredibly fortunate to represent an institution that is committed to the communities it serves, particularly when it comes to the issue of gun violence. Whether it is connecting gun victims to counseling and job training resources, or linking gunshot patients to crime victim services, or distributing free gun locks to disadvantaged communities, or teaching first aid in neighborhoods with high rates of shootings, Temple University Hospital has demonstrated a willingness to address gun violence on multiple fronts. When Amy and I started working together 14 years ago, I was 17 years old then. She was 19. It's actually in my contract to say that. It wasn't as common as it is today for people to view gun violence through a public health lens. You might even say that it wasn't really considered our lane. Now there are more people from the public health sphere working on gun violence than you can possibly shake a stick at, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Today we have physicians from throughout the city boarding buses and heading to Harrisburg to advocate for gun legislation. We have surgeons collaborating with journalists to develop solutions-based approaches to reporting on gun violence. That's you, Jessica Beard. And we even have doctors, public health researchers, and gun shop owners working together in an effort to prevent unintentional shootings and gun suicides. Lest there be any doubt, this is very much our lane. Finally, I would like to acknowledge how honored we are to be receiving this award on a night when Fred Guttenberg is being recognized. There are so many ways that fate could have brought us together. I'm just so sorry that this is the way that it ended up being. Nonetheless, you are an inspiration, Mr. Guttenberg. The definition of love, the embodiment of courage, a genuine badass. We thank you for all you do. God bless you, sir. God bless you all. Thank you.
Congratulations, Scott and Amy. Thank you. I just want to add that if it weren't for the work of the folks here from Temple and Einstein and Shop and Penn, the Philadelphia numbers would be even worse. The work they do, they save lives every day in and outside the operating room, and we are eternally. And I also want to make clear that the young people Dr. Goldberg tries to save have just as every right to be where they were, the right place, right time, as Jamie Guttenberg did, right place, right time, as the people at Squirrel Hill or in New Zealand or walking to a car late at night have. We have the right. We have the right to do these things, to pray and play and work and live and learn in safety. And that's what we're fighting for every day. So thank you. Thank you for being with us to celebrate these three tremendous heroes. And Scott, I'm so sorry about the order of the program. I always get put after Movita, so I should have known better how hard that is. But you did really, really well for a Buckeye. He knows. We have a thing. We have a little thing. I have two announcements. One is to text 97779 with ceasefire to get for our text messages. But the second, we don't have the date, but I hope you will join us next year when we present the Keystone to Courage Award to Senator Bob Casey. Thank you, everyone. I think R2L has some more yummy food for us, and hopefully you'll get to say hi to our honorees. And we thank you for all you do. We'll be fighting. We're going to Harrisburg tomorrow.